Hi everyone and welcome to my review of Yasujirô Ozu's A Mother Should Be Loved in 1934. So here we are. This comes as a supplement film to late autumn, and basically, yeah, another Ozu film. This one, it's a very different review, a little bit different, mainly because, I think, it's hard to kind of review a film where, part of it is actually lost, and that is a shame. And, I only really found out that, a couple weeks ago, and this is the one that I was very hesitant, watching because of that. I wasn't, desperate to see it, in the way that I just thought, I hope it's enough of a film to kind of let me get invested and all that kind of stuff. Not entirely a different review, but just the fact is, I will say my rating is based on what I've seen. Now, this film, is one of his early films, so a lot of them are actually lost entirely. This one is meant to be about 93 minutes long, something like that. This version, the only surviving one I believe, is actually only 70 minutes. The opening and the ending to this film is not included. So it's kind of how can you watch an Ozu film, you might ask, without the opening, wonderful opening setup where he reels you in, kind of thing, and then the really, really powerful endings where they always come together. In all the ones I've seen, they've come together wonderfully. Even, my least favourite ones like Equinox Flower, the endings, remarkable. Brilliant endings, always. And it was such a shame, to watch this film. Partly because, of course, it's lost, a lot of it. And, it could have been maybe a great film, but definitely a very good one. And because, I was actually really invested, and then, when I was at my most invested, the film cuts, and then it goes to these, kind of text, and it says what has happened, and the way it was described, it would have been, I think, would have been great at this ending, it would have been really good. Finally, I think, the outcome, I was thinking, wow, that's brilliant, but I never got to see it, and it's really annoying, but this is the only surviving version, so I have to review what I've seen. Now this film, it's a supplement again, and basically, Chieko, she's this mother of these two kids. At the beginning, which again I didn't see, unfortunately, it was just text. Basically, the two sons' father dies. She receives a call, and they was meant to be taking them on a trip and everything like that. A weekend trip at the beach. It never happened, and basically you see them for about two or 3 minutes as kids, which is unfortunate, because again it could have been much bigger scope added to the investment, the feel of it. I didn't see that, but basically you see them time jumps in the film, and basically the rest of the film is them. It explores a relationship that the two sons, but not entirely sons, which is a little thing that goes on, and it's like a secret involving that. But basically struggling with everything, and kind of explores their relationship with their mother, and the kind of different views, how they treat her, and just how maybe things have affected them, when they were younger. Again, it's very quite annoying, because it just would have added so much to actually see how this was set up, the kind of slow build up, and the fact is, I got 2 minutes with the childhood section, and it just jumped, and they were adults. It just kind of just chucks you in there, kind of thing, because of the first and last reels are missing, and that is significant. It really is, in getting me invested in the film. And of course, Mitsuko. It was Mitsuko Yoshikawa. She played the mother, and I would say the acting in this film is very good, and she was great in the film. Actually, very, very sympathetic. The character who, I really felt so for. I loved kind of some bits here and there. The arguments and everything between the two sons, and of course with her. I think this film is very focused. I'll give it that, and I think the actual relationship between these three characters, it is actually good. It's really good. Very human. It actually achieves some really touching moments towards the end, and around the middle mark, and I think it's just very nice, as well. Certain moments where tranquil. Cinematography in this film is great once again. The editing is not perfect, and of course the fact is it seems even more, confusing. The fact that the last and the first film was missing. But because there's a couple of time jumps in the film, and the editing isn't, some of the best Ozu editing. It really, it kind of feels a bit slightly messy as well. But yeah, basically, I think this film is good. I think it's pretty close to being very good as it stands, as an incomplete film. But again, incomplete. This is, and there's no denying that. What I've seen. It's a real shame. But the fact is, I've seen 13 Ozu films up to this point, and rewatched some of them as well. And I've loved all of them. And I think, he's one of my top 10 directors. Before I watched this, and hearing that some of it was missing, I knew it wasn't going to be one of his best, and it is his worst that I've seen by far. It's not great, and maybe it could have been, if it was a complete film without the really off-putting score as well, that wasn't added in here with this edition. Basically, a new restored, a new score has been put in there, basically. Optional, of course, but you can't really watch a silent film, without any music, because that's just not the way it's ever been. The silent films, most of them, have more music than normal films, of course. That's just the way it is. It's how cinema works. You can't really, it's like muting the sound. So I had to go with it, but it was off-putting. It was like, no one actually watched the film. Didn't relate really to what was happening. Just a shame. I'm not going to con it for that, the score, but I am going to con it for what I've seen. The fact is, this film is not complete as it is, and I think there is some stuff going through. Of course, I think it's a good film, and it would definitely have been very good have I seen the opening and the ending segments, because I think it would have added to my investment, and then the ending, the way it's described, sounded really, really good. It could have been pretty amazing, and it's just kind of a kick in the face, really, when it describes this stuff, and how it kind of wraps up. You get like a paragraph, and you don't get to see it. It's just a shame, and maybe if there is a miracle that happens one day, we'll get the full film. But I would just say no, of course it's not going to happen, because it's lost, and a lot of these kind of Japanese silent films, a lot of them are lost, unfortunately. And Ozu, he's got quite a lot of lost films, unfortunately, that will likely never be found or restored or anything. So that is a shame. Some of them even are included on some sets, and they have 10 minutes of footage. So it's just it's very, very sad, because he made so many great films, but a lot of them, you never know if there's maybe some other great ones he made that we'll never see. This one, I did like it. I think it was very human. For what was there, I got invested, definitely. I did get invested. I did care about these, characters. I think they were very good overall characters. Not great, again, even if this wasn't, complete. This probably definitely would have been the worst Ozu anyway. But I've seen, and the characters just not as complex and not as compelling as pretty much all the other characters in Ozu films that I've seen. But yes, that's not, it's kind of hard to kind of top these ones. But yeah, basically, I Was Born But is a flawless film. And this film came 2 years after, and it was in between that and, of course, The Only Son, his first sound film. And it's just a shame, that this is kind of, I Was Born But has got, of course, a complete restoration, really. It's not got the original kind of score, but, it kind of, it is, as it stands, it is complete, and it's a masterpiece. It's a shame this one hasn't got the same, kind of same luck, really. It's a shame, but I would recommend it. I think it really, there's some really good acting here. The cinematography, wonderful. I really like some of the outdoor scenes as well. Just quite uplifting, and it did have me invested. I was caring about this. There's a couple of bits of humour. There was some moments where I really kind of thought, satisfying, the kind of stuff that happened with the drama. The two sons, I think, it's really handled well, what happens there, and then with the mother, it's very human, quite touching in places. But again, I have to stress, it would have been so much more impactful if I'd seen, the opening, 10 minutes, whatever it is, and then the ending, because you know, I just got plunged in here, and you know, it's not a film that's made to be just plunging you in there and just kind of in the middle of it. Of course, it's not like that. You know, film can only be, you know, as good as it can be if it's, you know, shown as intended. You know, for example, even when films are cut as well, Once Upon America, I have not seen the shortened version. I never want to see it, but I can imagine, you know, it just would not make any sense and all this kind of stuff. This film, you know, it's not non-linear in that sense really, but again, a film needs, if it's designed, you know, to, you know, it needs an opening, it needs an ending really, for its full impact, and this one doesn't, unfortunately. But you know, I think what is on the screen, it is good. At times, it's very good, and it has some really wonderful stuff like the cinematography. You know, moments with the relationship. But again, this just isn't, you know, immensely compelling anyway. I don't think. So it is merely a good film. But again, you know, the fact is, this could be maybe the worst Ozu that I ever see, or top three worst for sure. It's still a good film as an incomplete film. You know, it's not all of it. It would have been very good, but obviously I can't. You know, I can't give it a score based on that, because I think, you know, how could I do that? I couldn't guess how much more the percentage would be if I'd seen the opening and ending. Of course, could have been 85. It could have been, you know, 88, something like that. Could have just been an 80. We never know. But you know, so that's why I've decided to give this, you know, a score based on exactly what I've seen, apart from the score, of course, and you know, just not kind of try to say give it a score based on, you know, guessing what it could have been, you know, with the extra bits in there, you know, as a complete film. I've scored it, you know, based on what I thought of the film, and I have to give it a 77%. I think so. That's a high good mark for me. You know, definitely, of course, nearing into a very good mark. Of course, it would have been very good if I'd seen, you know, likely if I'd seen, you know, the opening and ending segments. It's a real shame with this, because there's a lot put into this, and it's kind of, it's very, very meaningful at times. It has some really good acting. The characters, although, you know, they're not great characters anyway, but they are, you know, very good at times. They are compelling. I like the feel this film has. You know, it has a very kind of peaceful feel, but it's very touching at times, and the script is good, I think, as well, and the editing has some issues, which kind of adds to the kind of disjointed feel that it has. You know, you combine that with the fact that some of it's lost. But yes, you know, I can't comment on the ending. I can't say the ending moved me, because I had no ending, which is a real shame. You know, it's kind of very frustrating for Ozu's film. You know, one of his films is like this, and of course many more lost completely. It's just really annoying. You know, the fact is as well for him. You know, he made, you know, all these films, and you know, a lot of them, you know, at least 10, I think, actually are lost completely, or around that. And you know, the acting, as I say, very good at times. The characters, although not great, there's no great character in the film. They are very good at times, and solid overall. I think, you know, it has some really human moments, and you know, it is a bit up and down in terms of how compelling it is. The childhood stuff, I can't really comment on that, although there was some really nice shots, you know, when they're in the snow. And you know, from what I saw, it was very nice. You know, very human, very sincere again. This film as well, it has quite a lot of camera movements, of course. It's before he kind of, you know, really wanted to do the kind of not much movements and static shots and all this kind of stuff. These films, you know, these early ones, there's a lot more camera movements. Of course, it's silent as well, so that comes into account. But yes, basically, you know, great cinematography at time, mostly. You know, some really, really good moments. But overall, I just can't quite give it more than a good mark, because I wasn't, you know, fully invested. You know, these characters aren't great. The script isn't great either. You know, it's not Ozu standards really. Quite Ozu standards from what I've seen. If it had, you know, the ending and the opening stuff, it would have been very good. I think it would have been much more, of course, investing. You know, it would have moved me more. The ending sounded great. You know, I think it's such a shame. You know, you get an Ozu ending described to you, and you don't get to see it. That is a travesty, really. you know, and to be honest, I think actually, you know, I think I would rather not have seen this film. And here's what I say: I'd rather not have seen this film, and say waited a few years if I'd heard they are restoring it. They give me the full version. I would happily have waited years to see it in full and then include it in my ranking. You know, because I've kind of it is available, so I have to kind of review it for an Ozu. But I really, you know, I think when I do my ranking, this is kind of an exception. You know, it's not really a proper Ozu film as it stands. You know, it's not a complete film. You know, it's not fully been, you know, given to me. I have not seen it all. You know, the beginning and the end of a story is gone, and you know that's kind of a story usually has a beginning, middle, and end. Of course, not always, but you know, I mean, it has to have. If designed so, it has to be seen that way, and yeah, it's very frustrating. But even then, you know, just kind of end it on a high note. The Ozu film, you know, that is, you know, not all there, you know, kind of in terms of footage. It's still a good film, and you know, it's one of his early ones before he completely perfected his style and everything that he went for. You know, in his later films, it's still a good film. It's still quite touching, very human. You know, it's kind of just a short one, very light, but it does achieve something here. And you know, the cinematography, great cinematography, very very human relationships that happen here, quite compelling, and overall, you know, it did move me at times, and it was I was invested, you know, and certainly towards you know the last scene that I saw, you know, I was kind of you know, if I hadn't known, of course, that it was going to end, you know, I would have been, you know, completely anticipating the next scene. And then, of course, as I said, I get the text that comes up on the screen, and it's a real shame, this film, the fact that I've seen it. I really want to see the ending, but I can't. You know, it's very annoying. But yes, as it stands, you know, as a supplement. Now, of course, this is not a great film for me as it stands. It probably wouldn't quite have been great, even with the complete version, but it would have been close, definitely. So the worst Ozu film that I've seen, but you know, it's incomplete. This is more of just a checking it out kind of thing, you know, and reviewing it because it's an Ozu, and I will include it on my ranking, but I will of course say when I rank it, when I get to, you know, and it'll probably be the first one. But you know, it's kind of not fully fair to kind of you know, completely compare this to his other works because it's not, you know, complete. And yeah, it's just, you know, it's a shame, but it is a good film. Recommend it, of course, as always with Ozu films. But it's a real shame, and very disappointing that I've not got a complete film here. And yeah, it's just annoying. And you know, of course, I'll be reviewing all the other Ozus, but you know, if it's just a kind of a 10-minute, 20-minute surviving stuff of a film, I'm not going to be reviewing them ones. And you know, the ones that are lost, of course, we'll never get to see probably. But yes, thanks for watching my review, and I'll be watching an Ozu probably within the next 3 or 4 days. A full version one, you know, kind of one that is complete. And yeah, I would still recommend it. It's a good film. It would have been a lot better if it had been complete, and you know, of course, with the different score, all this kind of stuff. But yes, thanks for watching my review.